Up there in Periscope land, just want to make sure you can hear me. Billy Keels, how you doing, brother? Billy Keels all the way out in Barcelona, Spain. Happy New Year to you, brother. How you doing? I didn't even know you were a Periscoper. How about that? We need to get on a call and catch up. Hey, Mr. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing good, Tyler. How are you doing, sir?
Good, good. Did you have a good holiday?
I did. How about yourself?
Good. You're caught up on, you got that last response from me, right?
I don't think so.
About the apartment building?
No, I don't guess so.
Not sitting in my draft file. Hold on.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to know. I mean, we got to get that. We got to get that listing. You got to go over those financials today. Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 second, guys. We'll get started here in just a minute. Okay, Mike, I do owe you a response. I must have accidentally marked it as read, not realizing that. But I got you on mute. Hold on 1 second. I'll get that to you this afternoon.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Let's see here. I'll review. Lucius is in the house this morning. I haven't seen you in forever, Lucius. Where you been hiding?
Well, actually, I was in Tampa filming for a few weeks. So I'm back here now.
Give me a call, man. We should have gone and got some coffee. Next time you get down here, give me a call.
Man, I wanted to, but man, there's 12-hour days and everything. But certainly next time I come down for sure.
No problem. No problem. I've never actually known an actor before, except for a few real estate investors that said they were going to close and didn't. I know a few of those.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Oh, you want money for
Tyler,
this? Well,
I'm going to use that one, man. I don't know. I'm going to use that one.
It's fact.
I'm going to use that one. Are you going to close or are you just an actor?
Right. Yeah. Are you a real estate investor or do you just play one on television?
You just beat me to it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot of those in my market. What do you mean you want money for the $4 million apartment building? Why won't the bank finance it when it's a foreclosure? Don't you think they learned their lesson already? Crazy. Okay, before I get going on my topic this morning, I want to run through analyzing a deal with we got about 30 of you coming up on the call here this morning. So to go ahead and kick off, for those of you that don't know me, if you've never been here before, my name is Tyler Sheff. I am the host of the Cash Flow Guys podcast. I'm also a real estate investor, syndicator, and I am a licensed agent in the state of Florida. Been in the business about just coming up on 18 years now, so kind of just got started a week or two ago maybe. Done many things, fix and flip, buy and hold, you name it. Buying and selling other people's properties, all of that. So what I found when I got back into the real estate business, my second go around, we call it the second act, because the first act, we thought we knew everything, and then we realized we didn't, which resulted in about a 5-year break from the real estate industry. So we could actually take the time to learn what we needed to do the right way so that we could be in and stay in the second time around. My purpose of doing these calls, first of all, these calls evolved from a mentoring group that I'm a part of. That is a paid mentoring group on Facebook. And what it is basically is there's 5 mentors, and I am one of them. And we meet several times a week. I think there's 8 meetings a week. I'm do the Friday morning call with the members of this group to get your real estate questions answered regarding investing. This is not a coaching program. This is a mentorship program. So we don't do the one-on-one coaching and all that stuff. But there's a ton of value in it. The members that are in here will tell you it's a great group of members, and we get a lot of stuff done. We got one guy he's made about $100,000 in 3 months, 4 months, something like that. And we got other people doing really, really well, and some of those people are on this call. So it's a great opportunity. If you guys are interested in that, go to cashflowguys.com/mentor. You can watch some videos and learn a little bit more about it as far as what goes on. As far as the forum today, I've got you all on mute as you come in. I ask that if you have a question or wish to make a statement, that you raise your hand. It will send me a signal on this side of the screen to let me know that you have a question, you have something to say, and I will go ahead and address you at that point. We ask that you don't interrupt or don't talk over other people. Keep an open mind. Nobody here is an absolute expert in every topic. People have different opinions, and I ask that you respect each other's opinions and don't call each other out as stupid, moron, whatever. And don't talk over other people. It's rude, it's obnoxious, and it won't be tolerated. If it happens over and over again, that person will be removed from the meeting. We've had a little bit of that going on lately, so I want to set the rules of engagement right up front. I am hosting the call. I am the only host of the call. Therefore, I just ask that you be polite and you respect the others in their learning environment so they can learn as well, and allow people to have their opinion and allow people to learn. So with that, I'm going to start with Stephen Watson. Stephen, how you doing this morning? I've got you unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
I got you.
Awesome. So doing incredible. Just this morning here in the office, very excited. We had our first meeting as a group. We had maybe about 7 Kingdom members, and the remainder were like individuals who just floated in. I started that group, I think on December 28th, and we already have about 84 people in the group on Meetup.
Nice.
It's pretty crazy. Feedback from the group has been like we're working on getting all the resources together, taking inventory of everything that we have, and in the next meeting we're going to go full force into like working on getting some deals done, and just seeing how we can help each other. My question is, like, I know that you do your meetup. Like, do you have an itinerary that you follow? I really need help with that, because what I found is after a while, everybody was just looking at me like, what's next? I didn't have enough things to cover. And I want to make sure that as we progress as a group, we don't hit where we're meeting and we're not being as productive as we can be. So any feedback on that?
Yeah, I set mine up as a workshop style. In other words, a lot of education in mine, and we use the Cash Flow 101 game as a means that's kind of the centerpiece of our events.
Okay.
So when we bring people in, usually, standard introductions, hi, how you doing, that type of thing. We usually meet at restaurants. So there's a meal and whatnot. And then after that starts, I introduce myself and I go into, usually I'll have a topic of the week. Every week when we meet, every time we meet twice a month. We'll have a topic. It may be wholesaling. It may be something as generic as bringing value to the marketplace. So at that point, I will address things that I've experienced in the market that it might be of benefit to people. In other words, if there's the latest, greatest scam in town, I'll make sure I bring people up to speed on it. If we learn something new about title insurance or seller financing or a closing technique that worked, or we hear about a different type of deal structure, I will take about 20 minutes at the beginning of the meeting and go over that with people as a presentation. And then from there, we go into the cash flow 101 mindset and the game and all that, and go through that with people to get them on board. The nice thing about the meeting is, and a couple people have been that are on this call, you're always doing something. And what I found, at least for me, my experience is if you stand there and talk at me for 2 hours with a bunch of air, I'm going to get bored and check out. But we interact and we give them an opportunity to engage by actually doing deals, make believe deals right there at the meeting. So we can learn how each other reacts to different situations, and we can learn what our individual investor identities are. And we can also learn the investor identity of those people sitting around us. So if you got a good sized meetup, you will find that some of the best deals that can be made are made with your friends. In other words, your buddy's got a property. He may be in trouble. You can come out with a solution that makes sense for him. And he may be more amenable to accepting those terms if it's truly a win-win, less animosity and less fear on both sides of the transaction. It's just a better way to do business. I've done a lot of deals with people in my market that I've known for years. So we don't have to go through the song and dance and the courting process. We can go directly to, look, I get you in trouble. What is it going to take to get you out of trouble? I need 10 grand. Okay. Here's 10 grand. We'll go ahead and transfer the deed and hold paper or whatever we got to do and make it happen. Does that help? All right.
Can you hear me?
No, you're on mute.
Yeah, so that helps tremendously. I think on our next meetup, it should be excellent. I'm looking at introducing someone like an IRA custodian, and then also I had a hard money lender there. They do loans 6% down, hard money. Yep, and so I'm working that relationship, and just seeing how we could, what everyone wants and what they have, and just seeing how we're gonna put all that together. Like I know I'm gonna be working with Chad on a few things, Chase on a few things. Then I had maybe 2 or 3 realtors who stood in, and one of them he's bilingual, so I'm gonna help him. I'm thinking about going to the associations with him and seeing how we could set up a group there for teaching, because he gets like maybe 10 leads a day with people with cash wanting to buy property. Some of them, they're I want to call them foreign nationals. They don't have a social, but they have a tax ID.
Right.
So he's trying to figure out, hey, how he can help them. So I don't know if there's a way to do that. I know they have a couple programs through lenders who will do that, but I just don't know how that would be structured. So we're going to figure that one out.
Yeah, one of my lenders here in Florida, of course, he's of no value to you because unless you're buying property in Florida, but he's got one loan officer that specializes in international investors. It's just a different set of ways they underwrite the deal and things like that. But it's surprisingly forgiving. I got to tell you, it's like it's easier if you're not a U.S. citizen to borrow money in some cases than it is if you are. Go figure.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Stephen, if you're coming down for the seller or the creative acquisition boot camp, seller financing boot camp, one of the breakout sessions I'm going to do at night for Kingdom members or members that are part of my calls, I'm going to do a breakout session to teach people how to administer the Cash Flow 101 game, how to run that as an effective meetup, and how to use that as a tool to build your buyers list or raise capital. You all right, buddy?
I'm fine, man. that's the coffee machine and everything rattling.
Yeah, see, I got mine right here. It's nice and safe.
Yeah, so that would be incredible. No, you have John Schwab's event this weekend. Do you recommend I go to that, or should I just wait? Because really, where I am right now, I have a couple of deals that's coming to me, and what I'm trying to figure out, and what I'm getting from a lot of these other like the concept, even with Pete, is that you might be able to like master lease or with David Tilney.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure it out. You might be able to master lease some property and then work something out that way. Because I have maybe about 3 properties on one street, one owner. I'm trying to figure things out right now, and I don't know if that might help.
His course, anything John Shaw puts out is really good. He's He's been doing this a long, long time. He's one of the what I call the legends in the area. John Schaub, Larry Harbolt, Pete Fortunato. These guys are the real deal. Jimmy Napier. If you can get a chance to get into John's boot camp, I'd do it. I mean, what is it? $400 for 2 days?
Yeah, $475.
Yeah, it's nothing.
I'm thinking about it, but I'm like, I have a few things to do. I think I might just pull the trigger and go.
Yeah, you need to. I mean, that's the best $400 you're ever going to spend, I can assure you.
Okay,
I went to a lease option course, and it was like I walked out of there like I got a college degree in one day, and it was like $90 or something ridiculous. It was
wow.
It was so cheap that I felt guilty for sitting in for 8 hours.
Hey, I understand, but all right, I'm gonna start packing then. I gotta start driving. Get there.
That's cool. All right, man.
All right.
Anybody else before I get into deal review here, real quick?
Can I add something to that? Just an idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something we do in a local group here. I just went to it last night, and that I really like that you might want to incorporate. What they do, it's structured. It's the same way every time. But the first thing they'll do is we'll go around the room and say, "Hey, what are you working on? What will help you in the next 30 days? Give me 2 things that you're looking for." What I like about that is, you can find, if you're looking for a buyer, there's somebody in the room that's saying, "I'm buying property." So, you can put people together that way. And they'll have another section of the meeting where they'll say, what do you need help with? Like somebody needs a roofer, somebody needs, and somebody else in the group will have that resource. So it's a way for people to, get together, especially if it's a larger group, but just an idea.
That's cool. Thanks for contributing. All right. For those of you that just came in, when you come in, I'm going to keep you muted. And I just ask that if you have a question, raise your hand. I'll call on you. We'll unmute you and you can go on. And those of you that are new, if you would if you click on your screen, if you're not on a mobile device, and you're on a desktop, just click on your screen, the picture of yourself. You can click rename, and then just make sure you got your first name in there so I can address you accordingly. Because some people say like iPhone and things like that. And I'll call you iPhone. I don't mind, but you might. So there you go. So, folks, I'm going to go through part of because obviously I want to respect your time. I know a lot of you getting to the JOB. I'm going to go through a deal review, kind of show you a system that I use to break down the deals. And these are the deals that this is the end result of is the report that I will send to an institutional or a bank, an institutional lender or a bank, or in the event that I'm working with a private money lender who wants all the details. Very few of them do, but in the case that they do, it generates a report that you'll find is very helpful. Now, the downside of this software, and this is not a sales pitch for the software, I could care less if you buy it or not, but it's not Windows friendly. It's an Apple. It's only available on the Apple platform. But if you're going to be doing a lot of deals, especially if you're going to be a buy and hold investor or a rehabber, you should think about some sort of spreadsheet or something to help you run your numbers. It's very easy to overlook expenses. Very, very easy to overlook expenses. And you overlook just one expense. If you miss, I don't know, the water bill, that could eat into your cash flow by hundreds, and depending on the size of the building, thousands of dollars a month, leaving off that one little nugget. So I'm going to run through this with you guys real quick to kind of give you an overview of what I will use. This is an example deal. Most of my buyers, when I do a wholesale deal, or if I'm acting as a dirty realtor, are IRA investors. In other words, they're people that have a self-directed IRA. When you have a self-directed IRA, you generally have to be hands-off with the investment. You can't necessarily be actively involved in it. And who defines active involvement really comes down to the IRS. So my interpretation is they need to let me do the work and then pay me accordingly. So there you have it. So I'm going to screen share with you guys here real quick, and we'll pull up this property evaluator system. You guys all should be able to see this. This is something that I use with a couple people on the call here in my coaching program. They know this inside and out because I make them use it several times a day. And the most important thing of this whole topic that we're going to cover today is that you understand when you're analyzing a deal and you're trying to figure out what to offer a seller, there are only two things that you can modify. And that's the purchase price and the terms. And that really comes down to mindset. Now, people say, well, I can modify any one of these because look, if I just click on it, I can change it. I can delete it. I can make it say $80. I can do whatever I want. You're right. That is possible, but you can't do that. Because if you do that, you are going to put yourself in hot water with a deal, especially when you're buying and holding. If you're a rehabber, you're going to wind up losing money on a deal because you're going to leave something out. And guess what? That something is something that the new buyer is going to want for that property. So, or need, or the inspector or the appraiser or somebody's going to gig you. Greg Simpson's a friend of mine here in the local area. He did a video on Facebook just yesterday of showing a really shoddy rehab job on a property where these people, they went through like a band of gypsies and basically put lipstick on a pig, hoping some sucker would come in and buy it. Well, you walk right in the front door and the door frame was rotted out. I mean, they go spend 20 grand on a rehab job and then the workers walked in and out 100 times from a rotted door frame. Doesn't make sense. But anyway, if you convince yourself that the only two things that you can change basically are the purchase price and the terms, you will always be in good shape. You will keep yourself from losing money. And you'll keep your investors from losing money, which is even more important. So up at the top here, you've got initial market value and you've got purchase price. And I'll use this as a quick test even when I'm on the phone with somebody to see if, based on their numbers, especially if I've got a fast talking seller, that what they're telling me will even remotely work. And what I like about this is that when I change one thing up here at the top, it carries everything down for me. So I can quickly see that on this particular example, my cash on cash return is 41% on this deal. And that my cap rate, if I used cap rate, which I don't, is 11.9, or on the purchase price is 15,000 or 15%. It shows me that my debt coverage ratio is a 2. I'll explain what that is in a minute, but it's a great little program. This is called Property Evaluator, and you can get this on realestatetools.com. They've got it for the iPad and the Mac. They have it for the iPhone, but I wouldn't buy it for the iPhone because it's very cumbersome with the iPhone because they tried to put basically 20 pounds of crap in a 10-pound bag. So it's difficult to navigate on an iPhone. That's my experience. But then again, I'm old. I can't see so good. So maybe it's just me. Anyway, you can put in your purchase price up at the top. You can put in your debt, whether that be bank debt or the fact that you're using seller financing. And this is one of the common mistakes that most investors make right off the bat. They figure, well, I'm paying cash, so I don't need to put anything in there. Oh, you absolutely do. Because unless you went out back and picked that money off a tree, that money came from somewhere. You may not have necessarily borrowed it, but that money comes with a cost. You either worked for it, or maybe you took a home equity line, or maybe you pulled it out of your savings account. So even if you pulled it out of a savings account, let's say you were making 1% in a savings account. Well, technically, the minute you liberate that money from the savings account, you're losing 1% because it's no longer making money until it's redeployed. So put in a cost of funds here. In this case, it was a loan amount of $53,500 with an interest rate of 7% over 30 years. And one thing those of you that know me know, and those of you that don't know me will hear me say a lot, I don't really care what the price is. What I care about is what are the terms. And that's the most important thing. I will give you $1 million tomorrow for any property in the world if I get to pick the monthly payment. As long as that asset produces revenue, you could do whatever purchase price you want that makes you feel special. You could tell all the guys in the gym when you're slapping each other in the ass with towels, what a great job you did working me over the coals on this deal. But I got you for $200 a month on $1 million asset. And that's the difference. And I'm renting it for $1,000, let's say. That's what's most concerning to me. So this tool allows you to simply change one thing, the interest rate, for example. You see right now the payment's $355, but when I click enter, it drops it to $320 because we've changed the interest rate. It will allow you to put a first or second mortgage on the property, a third mortgage, a fourth mortgage, whatever. This is a great tool when you're combining bank money with private money, or you're bringing maybe even more than one investor together. You can see how each other's contribution shakes out in the deal. Guy comes in and says, I want 18% interest. You can plug 18% interest in and then scroll down to the bottom and show Mr. Fancy Pants Investor that you're losing money in the deal. Why in the world would you do that? I find this tool very good at keeping people honest. It winds up working out very well in negotiation. And to add a mortgage, can you guys see the pop-up? Mike Evans, can you see the pop-up window? Okay. So you can simply click on the area, and then you'll fill in either a percentage of purchase price, which in this case you could do 10% of the purchase price is what you're going to finance over 10 years at 6%. It will automatically calculate that based on the purchase price, what that shakes out to be. And then it will tabulate what your down payment is. In this case, that 10% would be $7,500, which means you'd have to bring $14,000 to closing plus $2,250 in buyer's closing costs. I've got this programmed for my market and for the way I do deals. The income, as far as the buying cost, that's basically your closing cost. And if you're going to do some sort of initial improvements, you can click on this here and add either itemized, like say you're going to replace the kitchen, you're going to remodel the bathroom, and you're going to add a roof on there. Yes, Trey, you can add more than 2 mortgages if you need to. You can break your expenses down for these initial improvements. If you're going to go in up front, you can break these expenses down by the square foot. You can do them as a fixed amount, or you can simply itemize them. Kitchen remodel, bath remodel, replace roof, resod the yard. These can each be individual items that'll help you itemize. If you're doing a deal with somebody else, it's a great tool because it helps you stay focused on what your original plan was and what everybody has talked about and agreed about. I'm not a big believer in verbal. I'm all about, once we have a verbal agreement, let's ratify it in writing. I don't do the he said, we said game. The income section, the next section, is where you list your rent. Now keep in mind, this is for buy and hold property. So if you got a flip and nobody's going to live in the flip, this obviously won't work for you. They offer another program that analyzes flips. I don't do flips, so I'm not going to go through that with you. I used to do flips, but I won't anymore. That's a whole other story. You enter your gross rent. And if you have a multifamily property, you add the sum of all the rent. So if you've got a duplex and each duplex is renting for $600, each apartment's $600 a piece, that'd be $1,200. You enter your vacancy loss, folks. You got to be conservative vacancy loss, because essentially in this one category, you have to guess to some degree of what your potential loss will be in the future 12 months based on vacancy. In other words, if people walk out, if people move out, or you have to throw them out, your place is going to be empty. Maybe sometimes it's only for a couple days. Maybe it's for a few months. Who knows? But if you don't allow for vacancy loss up front, I assure you, you're gonna experience it at some point. So allow for it, build it in. And you can see right here, 10% vacancy loss, which is modest in my opinion. 10% vacancy loss adds up to $2,000. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to put that in because then the deal doesn't look as good. Well, who are you trying to impress? If that becomes a real expense, where's that money going to come from? And the answer is your checkbook. I wouldn't want that money coming from my checkbook. The expenses, be very detailed in the expenses when you're underwriting a property, when you're looking at a property. Things like cleaning and maintenance. Unless you're going to be a slumlord you're going to have some cleaning and maintenance expense. And for that, you're going to need to budget for that. Just like mom and dad told you when you were little, you got to budget. Insurance. You got to allow for your insurance. And people say, well, I'll deal with that when I get to the closing table. Well, if you don't know what the insurance cost is going in, how could you possibly budget for that at the closing table? If you buy a property in a flood zone, for example, your insurance could be thousands of dollars a year. You want to talk about blowing a deal out, flood insurance will do that for you. Property management. I've heard people consider it a badge of honor when they can beat a property manager up and get a deal with property management. Man, I got that sucker at 5%. I got him at 8%. I'm getting a great deal. When I hear that, I always laugh to myself. It's like, no, you're not getting a great deal. What you found is somebody that doesn't value the service that they provide. And they will give you that appropriate amount of service. In other words, they don't value themselves, which is why they'll work for a reduced figure. And if they don't value themselves, I can assure you they're not going to value you or your property. So keep that in mind when you're interviewing team members. Somebody that is willing to give away their own money, what the hell are they going to do with yours? And this is the property manager collecting your rents, collecting your late fees, enforcing your rules. If they're willing to work for 5% or 8%, I would question that if it was me. I can tell you flat out what my property managers ask for and what they get are two different numbers. I intentionally give my property managers more than what they ask for. Why? Because then I can legitimately expect exemplary service. I expect that. I absolutely expect it. And because I'm their best paying client. So, for example, in Memphis, I've got a lot of units, but a lot of other people have a lot of units in Memphis. Well, guess whose units never go vacant for very long? Because I pay them more. And it gives them an incentive to provide me tenants quicker. I use, in this case, 15% of annual income, and here's my logic. I find that a property manager, on average, will charge 10%. If you call 5 of them, I would probably say 4 will say 10%, or somewhere 1 or 2 points around that. During the year, at some point, their phone's going to ring. A tenant's going to call them. And when their tenant calls them, they're going to have a charge for that. And when you look at their management agreement, you're going to see a charge for that. So if you just add in the extra 5%, which doesn't add up to a huge amount of money, it won't bankrupt the deal. And remember, I'm not saying that you're going to spend this money. I'm just saying that you're going to budget for this money. And that's a big difference, is that you're budgeting for the money. Now, let's see here. I can mute you guys real quick. So allow 15%. I strongly suggest you do the same. Allow for that. Bear with me 1 second, guys. Gotta mute y'all. Okay, there we go. How to get your insurance? You simply call an insurance company nearby, tell them what you got, give them the address, tell them what you're doing with it. It's going to be a rental property, and a good insurance agent will know the appropriate coverage to give you. The taxes, this is the property tax. It comes off of the property appraisers or the tax collector's website, either one. Well, in Florida, it's either one. In other markets, it may be different. But you can get that right online. Water, sewer, garbage is it depends type thing. Most often what I've seen is single family homes, the tenant pays water, sewer, garbage. On multifamily, very often the landlord will pay water, sewer, garbage unless the property is individually metered. Some landlords have spent the money to take a property that only has 1 meter and add meters for each unit. I don't find it cost effective because, at least what I found, it would cost about $900 per meter to install a meter. That's a lot of water, sewer, garbage to deal with. So for me, I just pay it. It's just an expense that I deal with. I pay, like on a 20 unit building, I'll pay, and up in Tennessee, I'll pay about $200-300 a month. And down here in Florida for 4 units, I'll pay about 120. Duplex will be about 60-70. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, see, Ken, you got vacancy loss right now. Yeah, that happens. When you do take over an asset, I don't want to sidetrack here, and when I get to Q&A, we'll discuss that. But when you take over a property and buy a property, tenants get freaky. They get nervous immediately. They think you're going to raise the rent, so they just panic and leave. During the process, when you start doing inspections, it's a good idea to go shake hands with the tenants and console them and let them know everything's going to be fine. There's no reason to go anywhere. What can I do to provide a better experience for you? Something like that. Build rapport with the tenants. Guys, those are your customers. They are absolutely your customers. If you think of them like subhuman, they're going to return the favor, I can assure you. But if you think of them like your customers, you will have a much better experience. Any other expenses that may come up, and I'll just give you an idea. If you just look over here in the left-hand corner, here's an example of different types of expenses that may come up. Advertising, auto and travel. Advertising can be for new tenants. For example, my apartment buildings in Tennessee, they're big buildings, and we put a big sign up on the side of the building when we have a vacancy so that people driving by can see it. So there's an expense for that. Auto and travel, that's if you're self-managing or you're going to check on your buildings. I put travel into my properties that are out of state because when I have to fly up to Memphis to meet with my property manager to talk to people, there's an expense. So I build that into the cost of the asset because I'm not paying that bill. My property is. Cleaning maintenance, we talked about. Commissions, if need be. Commissions could be to your property manager if they find a property or find a tenant for you. They may charge a portion of the first month's rent. They may charge a percentage of the lease to secure a new tenant. There's all kinds of ways that can be done. Repair supplies, pretty self-explanatory. Utilities, association fees. If you buy a condo or a townhome as an investment property, please, if you haven't done that yet, don't do that. Just don't. Please, God, promise me you won't do that. If you've already done it, I'm sorry. If you've got equity, sell. My thing is with condos, association fees, they can be a deal killer. It may be $200 a month now, and then the super qualified board of civilians that have never sat on a board of anything decide that the association needs more money to change the colors of the pool paint. Everybody's going to pay for it. It's going to eat into your profits. I don't want somebody else controlling my profits. Only Tyler controls Tyler's profits. So I don't like condos and townhomes. Flood insurance, that can be huge. I looked at a duplex about 3 years ago. The flood insurance on the duplex was $20,000 a year, $20,000 a year. Duplex didn't rent for anywhere near that. Lawn service, electric, house account. Here's an example. Where I live, my fourplex, I don't have a house account. I have a power account for my unit. The office ties into it, which is a separate building. There's no house account, so to speak. But my buildings in Tennessee are much larger, and they have a house account for all the lights for the common areas, for all the hallways. The exterior lighting, all that is all laundry rooms, things like that fall under a house account. So a house account is separate from the individual unit's electricity. And in a lot of municipalities, especially where it's cold, I leave the electric on in my units even when they're vacant. And the reason for that is in cold climates, I don't want my pipes to freeze. I also leave the gas on because up in Tennessee, if the gas is turned off and left off for a while, the seals in the gas lines dry out over time when they're not under pressure. And you go to turn the gas back on, they start to leak. So that becomes a major problem. And ask me how I know. I've written that check. It wasn't pleasant. So now I leave the gas on. We cap it off and we've got a lock mechanism that goes over all the pipe fittings so people can't break in and deal with it. But things like that. You see here, I've got equity payments to the seller. There are cases where I don't do a loan. And let's say if I give them $200 a month until paid, which is a common way that I buy mobile homes, it's not a loan per se. I'm just giving them equity payments. So I'll consider it a monthly expense. I give you $200 a month until it's paid. Takes 5 years, 10 years, whatever it winds up being is tied to the purchase price, but there's no interest in that. So I don't need to put it on an amortization schedule and break it up in the loan section up above. Instead, I'll just put it down as equity payments to seller and show it as an expense. And guys, when I get through this, I'll go ahead and get to your questions here in just a second. Once you get through your expenses, it gives you your net operating income. That's what we call NOI. So once you have your NOI, that'll give you a lot of information on whether or not this is a good deal. You're going to subtract your debt service from there, your mortgage payments, which gives you your net cash flow. That's the most important thing to me, is what my net cash flow is. I don't really care so much about what's going on up above, provided my numbers are accurate or padded, except for the rent. I'm going to deduct my debt service, and I'm focused on what my cash flow is. And one of you asked, I think it was Brian. Okay. Brian, you asked about debt coverage ratio. That's right here. Debt coverage ratio basically is the ratio between the income and the debt service. In other words, at the end of the month, how much net income is available to pay debt. This is something that a banker uses to determine the level of risk in a potential mortgage or loan. Now, when I underwrite a deal, I try to keep my debt coverage ratio at a 2 or greater. And a lot of people will say, well, you can't make that work. Well, I can, because I know how to negotiate. If you're trying to buy off the shelf and you think you can get a $5,000 discount off of list and you pat yourself on the back, then no, you're not going to see a 2-to-1 debt income ratio. What you have to understand is this is kind of your insurance policy, this debt coverage ratio. To me, this tells me at the end of the month, I have more than 2 times my net cash flow to pay the rent or pay the mortgage. So to me, this looks like a very low risk deal. And to a banker, it looks like a low risk deal. Recently, I was talking to the VP of a local bank, met him for coffee over at Starbucks for some clients that I'm working with. And he told me that their local branch, they use a debt coverage ratio of 1-to-5, which means they're far less conservative than I am, which means they're willing to take a bigger risk. And when he gave me the rest of the numbers, I thought to myself, wow, they're almost setting the borrower up to fail, because they're basically saying that they only want you to have 1.25 times the rent or times the mortgage payment available. So they're going to finance a skinny deal for you. First thing I thought about is, here we go again. Banks are taking huge risk. And then when it all falls apart, they're going to play victim and the government's going to bail them out again. But, it is what it is. Additionally, the bank has set it up as a balloon payment. They said that they would do 20-year terms at 4.5% interest, I believe it was. And they would be fine with a debt coverage ratio of 1-to-5. Oh, I think it was 15-year. 20-year terms with a 10-year balloon. So I asked the banker right then and there, I said, based on those exact numbers, how is it possible that the borrower could, using only what the asset provides, qualify to refinance that at the end of 10 years and deal with that balloon? He says, oh, well, they probably can't. Okay, so what happens with then? Oh, well, there's penalties and we have to do a restructure and we could potentially foreclose on the asset. Then why is that even a good loan product? Why does that even make sense? Why would you put that out to people? There was no answer. So just keep that in mind. You think predatory lender, and when you think predatory lender, people think about, the unscrupulous mortgage broker. No, your local bank are thieves just like the rest of them. As far as your returns, when I look at a deal, I look at my cash on cash return first. The thing is, though, if I'm using, on my deals, when I'm looking at a deal for somebody else, I should say, I look at cash on cash return. That's a true picture of what's in it for you after everything, including the debt service, is factored in. I don't believe in cap rate, because cap rate does not reflect expenses. It does not include debt service. I'm sorry, repairs or debt service. So a property can look great on paper with cap rate, but need $500,000 worth of rehab. So in my opinion, those are false numbers. So I don't believe in using cap rate because I just don't think it really gives a good, accurate picture for me anyway. Cash on cash return is what I like because a combination of cash on cash return and debt coverage ratio, because that tells me, number one, how secure is the deal? Number two, how profitable is the deal? Tell you what a good cash on cash return is depends on what your investor identity is, what market you're investing in, and that of your opinion of your investors. For me, I won't buy anything in Memphis unless I can get, for my investors, it's got to be at least a 50% cash on cash return to make it worthwhile. Debt coverage ratio definitely needs to be 2 or greater in Memphis to make it worthwhile. And if I was forced to use cap rate, I would need to be at about 25 to 30 cap for me to do a deal up there where I do a deal. And yes, I can do those deals all the time. So that's how it works. I don't ever get to 50 cash on cash in my own deals because I don't use my own money. I never use my own money in my own deals. I don't have to use my own money because I have experience, I have a team, and I'm the one that finds the opportunity. So I leverage other people's capital 100% to get my deals. I never use my own money. So for me, I can't really look at cash on cash return effectively because it's an infinite number. It just comes up infinite when you use your own money. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down at this point, and I'll take your questions. You got a question? Go ahead and raise your hand. The chat, I can get you in the chat. Cash on cash return is just that. It's the percentage of return on your investment based on the cash that you put in the deal. One of the beauties of real estate is that how you make money is based on the total picture. In other words, the total acquisition cost. So you can go borrow $100,000 from a bank and you can make money on that borrowed money. Cash on cash return would be the return if you put $10,000 down to be able to qualify for that loan. So your cash on cash is based on that. Let's see what else we got for questions here. Mike, go ahead. Let me unmute you, buddy. Hold on a second. Go ahead.
You hear me okay, Tyler?
Yep.
So for newbies, once they get to the point that they're analyzing these deals and they set the percentages based on their market for all the expenses, I've heard a lot of cash flow recommendations for single family versus multifamily. For instance, single family probably 3 to 350 or higher on single family versus multifamily looking for cash flow of at least $100 per unit. Do you have a recommendation for people starting out once they start analyzing deals?
It's going to vary based on number one, the price point you're in. So for example, if you're buying a $30,000 house in Indiana that rents for $350 a month, you're not going to cash flow $250 a month. You're not. Unless you pay cash
Understandable.
for it. So it's going to be tied to the price, the terms, whatever. As a generic metric, I mean, for me, I don't. I won't touch anything under $250 a door. And for me, that has to be a lot of doors for me to look at it. It makes sense. But then again, you got to factor all the pieces. That's a very loose guideline, but you got to factor all the pieces into the pie.
Correct.
It's kind of like saying, well, everybody's 70% of ARV, less repairs. Well, if everybody jumped off a bridge, what would happen? So I don't buy at 70% of ARV, less repairs. That's a Ron LeGrand thing from the 80s. I buy with completely different criteria. When I say that, very rarely do people bother to ask me what my criteria is. The few that do get my business. The ones that don't, they just think, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I gave him a great deal, 70% of ARV, less repairs. 60% of ARV, less repairs. It's got 1 bedrooms. I don't buy 1 bedrooms. So they missed the point altogether. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And where'd you go? Daniel. Let me unmute you, buddy. Hold on 1 second. Go ahead.
Hey man. So like for an example, you know that deal that I sent you with the duplexes in Birmingham?
Yep.
It turned out the rent roll was wrong that he sent me. I called the maintenance guy and he said only 3 of them were occupied. And so now that threw in a bunch of red flags. So now we're renegotiating the terms, and now I have a lot of leverage as long as his management company fills them up. So I'm getting in touch with them, and just as I don't know where to go out on the terms, I don't want to give them a down payment. The maintenance guy said that a couple of the window panes are broken in some of them, so they're not what this guy betrayed, and of course the rent roll is way wrong. So I don't know what to do from there. I don't want to do a balloon with them. So what do you do with balloons? I mean,
in 18 years, I have never, ever once, and I've had my fingers in well over 1,000 deals, whether as a buyer, a seller, or the real estate agent or the wholesaler. Never once have I ever gotten accurate numbers from a seller, ever, with investment property. They always either don't know, misrepresent, or just flat out lie. So one way you can hold their feet to the fire, and I've walked away from a lot of deals for this very reason. You need to see their last 2 years' tax returns, their K-1, showing what income they declared for that property.
okay.
Now, a lot of sellers, especially the dirtbags, will refuse. Well, that's unfortunate because I'm not going to buy from you. The banks now are finally getting smart and asking for those same information when they're underwriting these deals. They're looking for this information. They want to look at the owners because what they don't want, number one, is the federal government to come back and slap a after the fact tax lien on a asset, which can happen. You can buy a property, you're being a good boy, and then the guy you bought it from screwed up, and the IRS actually has been successful in putting a lien against your property because they owned it. They can reverse a sale. It's happened. I didn't believe it either until somebody sent me a copy of the U.S. court proceeding where it actually happened. They unwound a sale. Like, what? So their power is kind of freaky. I thought that was ridiculous when I heard it, but it happens. Second, I want to see what they call a T24 or a trailing 24. I want to see 24-month rent roll along with a copy of the bank statements to support that because the money goes somewhere. I need to see those deposits, 24 months worth. I will pay you, Mr. Seller, based on what the property does do, not based on what it will do, unless you are willing to do the work to get it there. In other words, if he wants to do a full renovation and fully lease it up and use a proper 12-month lease and vet the tenants appropriately, you will give him full retail for that property. No problem. But he's not going to want to do that. I can almost guarantee you. They're going to be like, oh, no. I just want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And guys, one thing I want to drive home is it's okay to walk away from a bad deal. You're not going to be able to negotiate every single deal successfully. And there's just some terrible deals out there. And yes, somebody will buy them from you. A lot of my clients are like, they get frustrated because, we put in a lot of offers and we don't get every one of them. We don't get most of them because there's a lot of bad deals out there. And there's no reward for buying a bad deal. So you hold their feet to the fire that they have to perform and provide you the documentation you request, or you just back out. That's simple.
All right. And so one more question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you negotiate no balloons? Because it seems like most of the deals I'm analyzing right now, we've got to that negotiating part where they want a balloon after so many years. So what do you do when I'm negotiating with that?
So one example I would use is, let's say I'm talking to Mike Evans and say, Mike, I understand that you want a balloon. But I'm concerned for you with the balloon. And here's my concern. If we do a 10-year balloon, you're locked in, buddy. I'm not giving you one. I'm not going to give you 1 red cent prior to 10 years. What happens if you need the money in 5? Now, we can give you a lot more flexibility if they simply give you the promissory note, right? That is an asset. That's something of value. And you can sell that note today or 30 years from now. Doesn't matter. You can sell it whenever you want because I want you to be in control of your money, sir. Is that fair? And he'll be like, yeah, because at a balloon, you don't have any control, Mike. I got control. For 10 years, you get your monthly payments. If you fall down the stairs and need surgery, I got nothing for you, brother. You're going to have to wait 10 years. If I give you a note, 30-year amortized note and payments that I can afford, you can sell that bad boy anytime you want, the day after closing or 29 years down the road. Do you not want that flexibility, Mike? What's Mike going to say? Hell yeah, I want that flexibility. People read in the paper that you should get a balloon, but they really don't have any idea what they're talking about with a balloon. And for me as a buyer, a balloon means that I have to go through an extra step at some point down the road in the future. And I can't predict where I'm going to be sitting in 10 years. I don't like filling out a loan application now. So I have a CFO do it for me. I can't imagine what it'd be like in 10 years. I don't plan on being anywhere where I have access to a fax machine or email in 10 years. I'm going to be on an island somewhere. So I don't want to set myself up to have to do more work down the road. And my mindset is that I'm focused on making sure that my seller has all the options available to them that this deal can afford. And by doing so, I won't give them a balloon, period. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's good.
Jordan, did you want to add to that? Nope, let me unmute you, Jordan.
Just really quick on the balloon aspect. Before I met Tyler, I bought a lot of properties and a lot of them had balloons. So next year, 2018, I'm looking at trying to come up with $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 all at the same time. So don't do the balloon thing. If you're gonna buy a lot of properties, don't do that. I mean, we're gonna get through this little strange period next year, but having the ability to sell the note, the seller selling the note instead, would never put anybody in that position. It's the only thing I was gonna add.
Jordan, for those of you that don't know, Jordan is one of the owners of The Kingdom, which is the mentoring group that I'm part of. I'm one of the mentors, and he's one of the founders. And Todd, I'm not sure if Todd's on the call or not. We got a pile of people on here, but he's one of the founders as well. Good news, Jordan, is, see, being a capitalist pig that I am, Jordan knows that if he has trouble qualifying under the bank's strict requirements, especially a year from now when they're a little freaked out about the financial cycles and they're not wanting to loan money, that Uncle Tyler, for the right price, will provide him with that $700,000 that he needs. I got his back because I'm a team player and I'm a capitalist pig. So you too can join the Cash Flow Guys family if you take balloon payments. I will bail you out in the future based on my terms. Thanks for playing. Aaron, you want to go ahead? Let me unmute you here real quick.
Hey, good morning, Tyler.
Morning.
Yeah, I had a question do you do any wraps? If you get financing in place or subject to and then sell it with owner finance?
I don't. It's just a personal choice of mine. I try to avoid properties with bad debt. I'm a long-term guy. And I find that, if I was rehabbing or something like that, years ago I did when I was flipping, because it's a great way to control a property until you can add more value and then flip it and take care of the debt service. But I'm old and lazy now, so it's too much work for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing some now. We'll get the property either with the seller willing to carry the financing subject to, or we'll raise the private money long term to secure the financing. And then instead of renting it out, we're selling it owner finance, getting a down payment and getting a monthly cash flow. I like that because we get money up front, we get a cash flow, and then there's a back end with the equity that's created out of thin air, basically, by selling the second note at a higher amount. I guess my question for you would be, we're looking at some of these properties, and there's a couple of factors that come into play. Obviously, the down payment you get, the equity that's created in the deal, and then the net cash flow after your NOI and your debt service.
Right.
So we're trying to set some criteria for like a minimum to make decisions quickly, like a minimum cash flow. And sometimes we'll find a deal with we'll generate $50,000 in equity between the spread, but the cash flow will be like $150. So, I mean, if you were to do something like that, would you shoot for a minimum cash flow, or would you really look at the other factors like equity, even though you can't eat that today?
I don't look at equity anymore because I know that we're going to have a market shift, market correction, call it what you will, but the market's not going to stay like this. It's going to correct. And I think when it happens, it's going to be monumental.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm not looking at equity outside of 6 months longer, 6 months from now. I'm only willing to go that far. After that, you won't get my buy-in. I like to liken it to a hot water heater as far as the monthly cash flow. I think to myself, I'll get you in a second, Gabe. Hot water heater on a Saturday morning costs $750 to get installed in my market with a plumber.
Sure.
If he's in a good mood. So if I'm making $100 cash flow, I think to myself, am I willing to walk away from 7.5 months of cash flow for a hot water heater? Ugh, kind of a tight deal. But when I look at a sub 2, the first thing I look at is the quality of the debt and how long I'm going to deal with it. So I'll wrap something for a reasonable amount of time, 2 years, let's say. But if it's like a 5-year scenario and it's expensive debt, and if it's adjustable debt, then I will not go anywhere near it. I won't be any part of anything adjustable. That's just me.
Yeah, I had a pretty good learning experience this past 2 weeks. We had a subject to deal that was initially pretty good for us. We were getting like a $400 some cash flow. We had like $80,000 in equity in the deal. We brought none of our own money into it. I think we ended up having to catch it up a little bit later, a few $1,000s, but still not bad. And then there was an escrow adjustment last year, and there was an escrow adjustment this year, and our cash flow is going down to like $150 because the taxes have gone up in North Dallas by a ridiculous amount, and the underlying servicer was not escrowing the insurance, and so we got stuck with a bill 2 weeks ago for like 5 G's, and now they want to spread it out over the next 24 months, and it's making the cash flow, look like crap, but we still have a nice equity in the deal.
In a lot of cases, especially if the loan has been seasoned more than 24 months, you can request in writing that they release the requirement for escrow. And you can do that by offering up the money that you need instead of the escrow amount. In other words, when you look at the escrow account, if you really do an audit, there's a company out there there's several companies out there. That's all they do is audit escrow accounts, because there is so much, I'll call it bad mathematics with escrow accounts, that people get these letters in the mail all the time. They're like, oh shit, I'm over escrow, or I'm under, or whatever. And they just write a check, or the bank says, don't worry, conveniently, we'll just add it to your low monthly payments. And then you're busy. Right. You don't know. So this happened to me, actually.
Okay.
It came in, and I'm that guy, right? I didn't give it to the CFO. I was like, whatever. So I went in and I adjusted it because it's auto debits, right? Didn't think of it. Well, I was having lunch with my CFO one day, and he's saying, there's a common scam out there with escrow accounts. I'm like, what are you talking about? He explained this to me, and I went, oh. So I sent him the letter, and sure as hell, they were off. I wound up getting a refund of $6,700 back, and my payment went back down to where it was. So I would audit it first, make sure they're correct. Because I would first want to know, I understand that they didn't allow for insurance, but make them prove that there is some requirement for them to escrow insurance.
And earlier you said you look for $250 a door to make it worth your while on a rental proposition.
Yeah, I won't even pay any attention.
Similar. I mean, we're buying this for cash flow, but the equity is kind of like a bonus. Would you suggest the same? We've kind of been looking between 200 and 300 per house. We're doing single family mostly to make it worth our while to do all the work and all the doc prep and manage it and all that. Would you agree?
Well, so 200 to 300. So based on percentages, if you have a fluctuation in the market by percentages, it's going to hurt you a lot bigger in a $200,000 to $300,000 house as it will in a $50,000 house. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of. I'm not focusing much on the appreciation. I would want to know, how long are you planning on holding it? When are you going to exit out of this?
Well, whenever our end buyer sells or refinances, then we'll be cashed out of the deal. You know, that's the exit strategy. So we'll keep it as long as we can, as long as it's cash flowing.
I would structure the opportunity with your end buyer in a way such that it motivates him to do it sooner than later.
Yeah, I've heard that from several people. I'd like to hear what Gabriel has to say about it, because we have sometimes some different views on these strategies.
Yeah, Gabe, I lost you on the screen here. I got to unmute you. Hang on.
Thanks, Tyler.
No problem. You're around here somewhere, Gabe. Just let me find you. Oh, there he is. You there, Gabe?
Yeah, I'm right here. How you doing? Good morning.
Good, man. Morning.
So I guess a couple things. One, I completely understand what you're saying about a market correction coming, and obviously that's going to change a lot of stuff. In the case of selling owner financing, and basically we're, in a sense, unless they default, we're essentially locking in that equity, though. You know, so we're wrapping it, and we have that equity basically. I mean, they've agreed to pay it to us, is the bottom line. Doesn't mean they're going to necessarily, but I think that's a slight distinction between that and maybe holding it as a rental. Wouldn't you agree?
To some degree, and it all depends on, they say you make money when you buy, and that's absolutely true. And here's a good example. I buy non-performing. I have a couple partners, and we buy non-performing first position notes. And people have asked, Tyler, we hear you talk on the podcast about the market's going to crash, the sky's falling. What the hell are you doing buying single family mortgages that are in default? And my answer is because we're making an absolute killing. But then usually the next question from investors is, what happens when the market collapses? Well, I'm buying at 20 cents on the dollar. That's my in. So at 20 cents on the dollar, if the market collapsed tomorrow, I'm buying a 100% value note for 20 cents on the dollar. If the property lost 50% of its value, I still got 30% equity in the deal because I've got such a huge margin because I'm buying the paper, not the asset. Granted, I have to foreclose to get my hands on that, but that's why I'm okay with doing those. If you've got a huge spread in there, knock yourself out because, first of all, the market won't crash overnight. You'll hear the warning signs, bells will be ringing, and you'll have an opportunity to get out in my type of situation. I can bail, I can sell the note, I can do all kinds of things. You are a little more locked in because you're depending on a third party, your buyer, to do something. So just go in knowing that you're right going in. In other words, you've got lots of skin. So if they walk and leave you with an empty house with nasty carpet, that you got enough money in the deal to tidy it up a little bit, get it on the market, and sell.
Right. And it's just kind of tough sometimes when there's like our minimum, let's say, is $300 cash flow. And this specific transaction, we're going to make $50,000 in equity and a $260 cash flow.
Right.
Like, to me, it's like, are you serious? Like, really, we're not going to do this deal because of that? I mean, I don't know. I've turned down several this last month or so just in similar situation. Maybe not that much equity, but you get the idea. I guess you just have to.
I go through this hourly, brother. Let me tell you. So I'll sit down on a deal and I won't touch anything with debt coverage ratio under 2. If my DCR is 2 or under 2, I don't care if it's 1.9999, I won't do the deal. And I had to set up myself with some absolutes because I go through that so much, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So once I got there, I also realized, I set myself a little more conservative or a little less conservative than where I really want to be. I really want to be a little higher than that because I'm a capitalist pig, don't forget. But I also I realize once I meet this criteria, I'm going to make it better the day after closing. But I'm not going to pay the seller based on that. I'm going to pay the seller based on current performance or what I can get out of the deal as I see it written today. I'm not going to speculate because I'm not that smart enough to speculate. But that's me. So I will structure it that way on purpose. And then just to give you an example, where I live now and where I'm talking to you from, this fourplex. When I went in, this deal originally cash flowed, I think it was $1,200. And the day after closing it, cash flowed $2,000. And 3 years later, it cash flows $5,300 a month net, 4 units. Because I changed the use on one of the units from one. I changed one to vacation rental. And just last month, we made over $3,000, one unit. Clear.
Beautiful, man. I'm actually in my fourplex as well right now. Same exact situation, and not the cash flow numbers, but the 2 long-term leases and an Airbnb.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And thank God, man. I thank God every day. It's like it's such a good. I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
So okay, and then as far as you mentioned the escrow, auditing the escrow for that situation Aaron had brought up. Basically, you're just saying, look at how much they're saying the insurance is, look at how much they're saying the taxes are, and just determine if that number is adding up.
Correct.
Right. Nothing more than that, really.
No. 8 times out of 10, you will find that when the loans change hand from bank to bank, there's going to be some sort of discrepancy. Something will get left out. And then, unfortunately, the cubicle worker will, whoopsie, educated guess, and you're going to pay the bill.
Right. And I don't think I quite understood the scam you were talking about, though.
Well, what they will do sometimes is there's been cases to where you'll get letters in the mail from the lenders basically telling you that here it is, not giving you the opportunity or informing you that you even have the chance to negotiate with them or to question it.
Right.
They present it as if it's not to be questioned, and if you don't play by the rules, bad things are going to happen, which I think, to me, is a scam, because that's just not the case. It's an escrow account. Really has nothing to do with the mortgage. It's separate from the mortgage.
Right.
So I don't like it when they play dirty pool like that. Fortunately, my bank hasn't done that to us, or banks, but I know people that have gotten those letters, and then they send them to me. I'm like, wow, that sounds like one of those dirty collection letters, like when you didn't pay your finger hut bill. It's like, what? Kind of.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. I just want to address the chat here real quick. Storks talks about, I know Tyler likes to work the 1.5, but I have in the past aimed at negotiating the sales price down to 1.0 minus repairs instead of doing MAO. Storks, you got to understand the 1.5 rule applies to rental properties, not flips. Flips is a whole different angle, and it depends on a lot of things, the repairs being one of them, but also conservative market value, which fluctuates, and there's a lot of factors that affect that. But for a rental property, I will never go below 1.5, because at a 1, I can almost guarantee you're going to lose money. Almost guarantee you're going to lose money if you use 1.0 as the quick test method. And guys, basically what we're talking about is method I use to quickly do a drive-by analysis of a property. If I know the property rents for $750 a month, I put $750 in my calculator, and I divide that by 1.5%. That means I should be able to acquire that property for $50,000 or less, all in, to make it worth my time as an investor. That's all in. If I'm not close to that number, I'm going to keep driving. That'll apply to gas stations, apartments in New York City, flats in Honolulu, and mobile homes in Birmingham, Alabama. Because what that basically, it's a hurdle rate. And it talks about, for those of you that joined in late, it talks about, it identifies the variance between the income a property generates and the purchase price or the cost associated with the asset. That does leave a lot of profit in there. And yes, those numbers are conservative, but I'm not in this game to lose money, and I'm not guessing. I'm playing to win. And people will tell me that won't work. People tell me in my own market it doesn't work. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you do that calculation on my place, it works. It works real well. If you take $5,000, that's actually $5,000 a month net cash flow. You take $6,500 divided by 1.5%. That ironically means my little fourplex is $433,000 is the most I could pay for it and still cash flow. It's absolutely true. I would still cash flow, not much, but I would still cash flow. So don't cut corners when you're doing your analysis. That's what gets you in trouble. All right. Okay, guys, we're a little bit over on time. I'll take one more question, and then we're going to pretty much have to wrap it up here. Everybody good to go? Okay, I got one in the chat here. I just got to find it. Yeah, as far as tax collector value, for those of you that are new, what the county tells you the property, the value is generally is for tax purposes. That's not the true value. The value could be looked at many different ways depending on what you're doing with the property. So think more about the use. If it's a rental property, it should be tied to the income the property generates. That said, when you're estimating property taxes, pick up the phone and call the tax collector. Shockingly enough, in my county, here in Florida, in Pinellas County, if you call them, it'll take 30 minutes to get them to tell you if you paid $150 for this property, what would the taxes be? Because they change their minds on a regular basis, it seems like, with how they calculate the millage rates. I don't get it. It's only here. Candace, I see your hand up, and let me unmute you real quick.
Morning, this is Candace from Tampa.
Hey, Candace.
Just had a question back to the notes topic. So I'm supposed to be meeting tomorrow with the seller of that fourplex in Holiday, and I just wanted to know, so when I do split those notes up into three, like you suggested, the two notes that the seller resells to someone at a discount, are those going to be like the positions of the mortgage, like a first position or a second position? Is that what that is?
Essentially, yeah. So positions come from at what time something is recorded. So if you've got one note that gets recorded on Monday morning at 9:30, and there's no other notes against the deed, that becomes first position. If the next note gets recorded at 9:31 because it's in the stack that way, it becomes second position, and so on and so on. So they will actually, in Pinellas County, they will break it down by the time. They look at the time stamp that the clerk stamps it. So essentially, a title company could get their papers in the wrong order. This happens on a regular basis. The bank becomes second position, and the private money becomes first. Seen that happen on several occasions, just based on how it was recorded, how specifically it was recorded.
So follow up then, when he does sell them, he's going to end up getting less than what he wants at a discount. Like if he's going to sell them at a discount, he's not going to get the full amount he's asking me, right? So how do I kind of frame that to him to make it sound like a perk, right? Because he wanted the 210 I told you that he wanted, and so now he's going to have to sell it for less than that. So what is the perk? Just that he can get it now instead of waiting?
First of all, we don't know what he's going to be able to sell it for down the road because we haven't identified the buyer for that note. So
it's true.
I don't want to assume, and I'm not going to really get into a big long song and dance with the seller about that. The bottom line is he has the opportunity to sell the note down the road. More often than not, Mr. Seller, a lot of note holders decide to sell the note at a discount. That discount percentage is completely up to you because you own the paper. You can elect to hold out and sell it for full value, or you can discount it and sell it for quick cash. It's totally up to you, because if he's in a hurry, he may sell it for 50% of face value if he needs the money for something. But if he's not in a hurry, he may hold out for full value. And for me as an investor to say that the next note buyer who I haven't met won't pay full price would be not true, because I don't know that for sure. For example, an IRA note buyer, if it's good, solid performing paper and it provides a decent yield, somebody may pay full price for it. I don't know. Unlikely, but possible. So one other way you could do that is to simply, if you're going to give him a $10,000 note, let's say, and he knows that in 5 years he wants to sell it for a discount, say, okay, well, what if I gave you a $15,000 note that you could sell for 10 later? Because at the end of the day, if you do the math, on the difference in the payments between a 10,000 and 15,000 over an appropriate amount of time, the math could be very minor. So I've written notes from, that's usually how I do it actually, is I'm going to give you want 100,000 for your house. Okay. If they agree to take payments for equity, I'll write it for $120,000 note, 30-year amortization at, I don't know, whatever interest rate I can get away with. And then when they sell it, they're going to sell it for 100,000 face value. Everybody wins. Because as long as the asset can afford the debt, that's the key. If the asset can afford $300 a month payments, don't commit to $350 a month payments. Adjust the terms until it gets to $300 a month payments. Does that make sense? Because you have control over the terms, because you can only in good faith agree to payments that you know the asset can afford and that you can prove can afford. And that's kind of where that debt coverage ratio comes in.
So I'm creating the terms on note. Okay. And then the last question, last one, I promise. So you were saying when I do write up on page 11 of the FAR bar, when I do write the term, like the verbiage that says it's going to be 2 notes, note 1 is this, note 2 is that, you were saying go like to Yes or No Law to have them draw up like the notes. Do I do that before I give him the contract and talk to him about all that stuff, like the offer and the contract? Or is that like after he accepts it, then, hey, Roger, we're going to go down to Yes or No Law and they're going to drop the notes? What's the order of?
Get it under contract with the terms outlined in the contract. Once the agreement's been made, document that agreement, everybody signs off on it, then you go down to the attorney and have the attorney do his magic. You don't have to go to an attorney. You can use a title company. But at the end of the day, I'm a believer in attorneys because, they've had a little bit more school than the title clerk. And frankly, my title insurance company, my title company is awesome. But I still have Sean do my notes. I would still do that.
Okay.
Just because I trust him. And at the end of the day, if it comes down to I have to go to court, I would prefer that the person that wrote the note be there to represent me. And the title girl won't be there. Does that help? Did I lose you?
It does. Thank you.
Joe from Michigan. Let me unmute you, brother. You are live. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm going to be short and sweet. This was great. This is phenomenal. I was talking to my mother about this specific topic and acquiring more knowledge. So I just wanted to know under what tab this recording would be, because I would like to go back and show it to her tomorrow.
These will be available on my website directly.
Okay.
You can. We don't have that live yet, that portion of it, but there's going to be a tab for these calls where you can watch all the previous ones and whatnot, because we cover so many different topics. So that'll be coming probably in the next 30 days or so. But
so it'll be available in the next month?
Yeah, I can probably get it on I'll get with Jordan and get it on the Kingdom site as well.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Ryan H. Oh, hold on, buddy. Let me unmute you.
There we go.
Going
back to the notes.
Yeah.
If what about if you're you're talking about the buying of property and the notes. What about the idea of putting some kind of language in that if the person wants to sell their note at a later date, that you would have first option to buy it from them, to where wouldn't that help out for both of you in the long run on that?
It very well could, yeah. That's actually, sometimes I take things for granted, but that's actually kind of boilerplate language that we use in ours, is the first right of refusal to buy them out.
Okay.
If we want.
Excellent. I just wanted to bring that up because I had heard that a couple years ago between a couple people talking, and I hadn't heard that brought up. I just wanted to throw it out there.
And that's one of the big advantages, honestly, of private money, private notes, is that what you just point out is, and some of you may be wondering, what does he mean? If you go to tomorrow and get a $100,000 mortgage from Bank of America, and let's say 5 years down the road, you decide that you want to pay it off, Bank of America is going to say, okay, well, based on the amortization schedule, you've made this many payments and your payoff is this much. Pay us that. And you say, oh, no, I want to pay less than that. They're going to say, no. If you want to pay less than that, we're going to foreclose because they're an institutional bank. But a private party may say, to the private party, hey, would you rather have all your cash now, sir? Well, yeah, I'd love to have all my cash now. Well, if you let me buy the note at a discount, we can make that happen. Let's say you come into some money or you sell a house, you have some extra capital, whatever. That $100,000 note that your payoff would normally be $75,000. There's no reason why you couldn't offer to pay 65, 60, whatever cash to pay it off and be done with it. And that happens all the time. So you buy out your own note. So you give them the cash or something in trade. That could be done too. Hey, I got this cool RV and a bass boat I'm not using. How about I trade you these for satisfaction of my note? Yeah, no problem. And off you go. So absolutely be creative. Alan Luna. Hold on, but let me unmute you. All right, Alan, you there?
Yes. So I had a question. I've recently found
I got no audio on you, buddy. I can barely hear you.
All right. So I was recently found an 18-unit apartment complex. It's about an hour away from me. And me being new and only being 20 years old, I was wondering if it's too much of a project to take on from a first deal. The seller wants right now $299,000 for an 18-unit. They're all 2-bedroom, 1 bath. They're all brick buildings, 1 story. And so far, I gave him a call this morning because I found it yesterday. He has not responded. And as of right now, all are rented out besides 2. And he has a good history of $5,000 to $6,000 a month cash flow. I've called him to see if it's net or a gross. He has not responded.
I wouldn't discourage you from looking into any deal based on size, but what I would ask you is, do you have a team built to be able to handle this asset? And with that, I mean, let's say I'm the seller and I say, okay, buddy, we'll go ahead and let you buy this thing. And I'll even hold the paper. And you give me $1,000 down, ready, set, go. On day 1, do you have a team in place to be able to effectively manage this? Or are you going to be like, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
So if the answer is, oh my God, then I would first focus on building a team. Because if you're looking at getting someone to loan you the money, or a bank or the seller or whoever, the seller to maybe hold paper or something like that, that's one of the first things they're going to think about is, if something goes wrong, does Alan Luna have the resources to take care of it, the experience and the resources? And if the answer is absolutely not, the second question will be, does Alan Luna have a team in place to effectively manage this asset? So what I found is, when I first started doing multifamily, everybody came to me, including brokers, and said, you don't have enough experience to buy multifamily. I said, okay, how much experience do I need to buy multifamily? And I got 15 different answers. Yes, 15 different people. I said, so the fact that I've worked as an agent for, at the time, 12 years. I've flipped over 100 houses. I've forgotten how many properties I've wholesaled. None of that matters. I'm not allowed to own a multifamily property. A duplex is over my head, apparently. I can't get 2 mobile homes screwed together. Whatever. They wouldn't give me the opportunity. They shut me down because I didn't have a suitcase full of cash, and and people didn't want to talk to me. So I just kept asking the question, and finally, what I got is, it's not me they don't believe in. It's that I don't have a network. I don't have a team in place. So when what hits the fan, that I can work through the problem. So what I did is I changed direction and I started building a team. And the very first thing I did is I found really good property management and I leveraged their experience. No, I have no idea how to own an apartment building, but these guys have been doing it since 1942 and they're my partners in this deal. Then people started to pay attention. Oh, okay. And no, I don't have any money, but this other guy that's my attorney knows a guy who might be interested in investing so much into this. And I kept asking more questions and they'd say, but you don't have a this, you don't have a that. Who's your CPA? I don't know. I'll go hire one. So if you focus first on kind of building a team, building your network, because the old saying goes, your network is your net worth. Nothing can be truer. I assure you that. I don't know. I'm not an expert in any one thing about my business, except for the fact is I know where my desk is. I have experts around me that work with me, for me, depending on how you look at it, that help me get stuff done because, dude, I don't have all the answers. And my job is to kind of be the puppet master and I manage the managers. That's my job. And that should be your job. So then, yes, you could take down a deal that size if you do the work building the team to handle it. Does that help you?
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, I think that's it, guys. Everybody's squared away. Let's see here. All right, guys. I want to thank you for coming out. This was Coffee with the Cash Flow guys. I think this is our third or fourth week. Hope you guys are enjoying it and getting some value out of it. Tell your friends and whatnot. And if you're in my market, we do Cash Flow 101 meetups about twice a month now coming forward. We've been doing it for about 3 years. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing without giving a guru 50 grand, come on out. Those events used to be free up until this week, until my free venues went away. Now they're $20 a time because I have to pay to get the space. And I love you guys, but I don't love you enough to pay your bills for you. So sorry, but $20, but I don't think $20 will break any of you. Hope you guys have a profitable week and we'll be back here next Friday at 9 a.m. Same place. Have a great week.